Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whenever you watch this video. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Aisyah Andina Lestari. I'm a 7th semester student from University of Pamulang. I would like to say thank you to my Introduction to Psycholinguistics lecturer, Mr. Tito, for giving me a chance in making this video as my midterm test assignment. In this session, I will discuss about language disorders. What is language disorder? Language disorder is a communication disorder that interferes with a child's two-way or one-way communication. Children who have language disorder cannot communicate like children in general, whether it is two-way communication where there are other people as their interlocutor, or one-way communication where they express something intended for themselves or can be said to also speak for themselves. Children with language disorders have difficulty adapting to the social environment. Language disorder usually begins to appear in children when they are in age 3 to 5. This age range is a phase where they are in a stage of growth and adapting to their social environment. By having language disorder, their freedom in absorbing knowledge and information, such as from the basic like gaining new vocabularies, forming sentences, conveying complaints and needs based on what they want and what they feel, becomes hampered because by having language disorder, they have difficulty in expressing all of this. Children with language disorders usually have difficulty in producing sentences completely and correctly, in accordance with the rules and regulations of grammar. They may only produce simple sentences and easy words by referring to important points to represent what they want to say. There are two types of disorders that are usually experienced by children with language disorders. The first is receptive, which is involving impaired language comprehension, and the second is expressive, which involving language production. More about receptive and expressive language. Receptive language is the ability to comprehend and understanding language heard or read, while expressive language is the ability to show spoken or written expression. In language disorders, these two types of language became the inability for the children who have language disorder. Either they experience the inability of receptive language or expressive language, or the combination of both is also possible. Children with receptive language disorders tends to unfocus in listening to other people's words. They may hear the voices of people near them talking, but do not absorb what they are saying. They seem to have their own world inside their heads, so the sounds from outside their heads do not blend well with what's inside their heads. They are lack of interest when storybooks are read to them. Since they find it difficult to guess words and absorb the meanings, they became disinterested with what they hear. For example, when their parents read them a storybook before bed. Having the inability to understand complicated sentences, to learn and understand simple and easy words, they usually need a long time, especially when they have to digest difficult sentences which may end up not being understood by them. Having the inability to follow verbal instructions. They have difficulty or maybe unable to understand when people in front of them show or express themselves through words, either orally or in writing. Expressive language disorder. Having difficulty in composing words, they tend to have difficulty in composing sentences. Sentences that are then formed tend to not match with what is in their heads. Usually, they can only form short sentences with the use of easy word level. Children with expressive language disorders tend to have difficulty in finding the right words in the sentences they produce. Often words or sentences that come out doesn't sound make sense or are strange or revert to other meanings which do not match with what they mean. Vocabularies below the level of other children the same age. The vocabulary they mastered tend limited, and the ability to master new vocabulary is also limited, so the words that come out tends to be those same words again. Due to the limited vocabulary in the dictionary in their head, they tend to use the same phrases over and over again. Having difficulty in expressing their thoughts, feelings, and needs through words appropriately tends to make children with language disorders feel frustrated. They need to be understood, they need to be heard, but this lack of communication frustrates them. The next is 8 types of language disorders. The first is sensory impairments. There are 2 types of impairment, which are deafness and blindness. Children who are blind have limited communication. They can only recognize words through spoken and audible sounds and cannot communicate through gestures or facial expressions. In addition, children who are deaf at first tend to have difficulty in producing words correctly, especially if they have experienced this deafness since childhood. They cannot distinguish high and low pitches of their voice to match their pronunciation, which causes communication delays. Next is apraxia. Apraxia is related to the damage to the part of the brain associated with speech. People with apraxia of speech have trouble in sequencing the sounds in syllables and words. The next is dyslexia. Dyslexia is a reading disorder where the sufferer has difficulty in learning how to read fluently. They tend to be slow in processing what they read and what they receive, so it is also possible for them to have difficulty expressing themselves. This disorder is quite common and afflicts many people. Dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is a writing disorder. Sufferers tend to have difficulty in expressing words through writing, especially handwritings. This distraction allows them to make mistakes in expressing their thoughts or feelings on the paper, which results are not in accordance with what they thought or intended. The next is stuttering. Stuttering is a speech disorder in which the sufferer repeats syllables, sounds, and words so that it becomes a habit. They also tend to be accompanied by other habits such as constantly blinking or experiencing tremor of the lips. This disorder can be caused by genes that hereditate by parents or member of the family. Also can be caused by mental health such as trauma and brain injury. Down syndrome. Down syndrome is a condition in which a child is born with an extra copy of the 21st chromosome, hence its other name, trisomy 21. This causes physical and causes mental developmental delays and disabilities. The next is autism. Autism or Autism Spectrum Disorder (ASD) is a neurodevelopmental disorder that causes disturbances in behavior and social interactions. Children with autism tend to have difficulty in adapting to the social environment and associating with non-autistic children due to their differences that are more prominent compared to the other non-autistic children around them. And the last is Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder or ADHD. ADHD is the most common disorder that afflicts children in which the symptoms can continue into adulthood. Children with ADHD tend to have difficulty in maintaining focus on one thing, paying full attention, controlling their habits, and controlling their active movements towards various things so that they tend to show excessive expressions, actions, and reactions. And that brings us to the end of the discussion about language disorder. Thank you so much for your interest and attention.